I've known Max Quintavalle for roughly 10 years. We met in Malibu while I was working at James Perse. He's originally from Florence, Italy, and in 2012, he started Italy to the Max, his Italy-specific travel agency catering to high-net-worth individuals. We talk about what it's actually like as a foreigner moving to the United States and what it's like dealing with immigration while trying to start a business. The importance of personal connections and networking runs throughout this episode, and how those two things ended up granting him his American dream. He's a man of many interests, and at 6'4", fitness is sure one of them. We discuss everything from what makes a good knife to how he fell in love with Ralph Lauren's RRL denim. I'm your host, Wesley Smith, and you're listening to the Standard Age Podcast. Max, welcome to the podcast.
Thanks for having me.
Of course. Tell me a little bit about where you come from, where you grew up.
Okay. So let's start from the beginning. I am Italian, and I was born in Florence, which pretty much everybody knows that's in Italy. Actually, to be more precise, it's in the state of Tuscany. We are very proud about it. Growing up in Florence was interesting because I was born in the 60s, so it was very different from the city that is today. It was like my best way to describe Florence, where I grew up. It was like a small city with a big name, meaning that, everybody knows about Florence. You can go probably anywhere in the world, like from Japan to Indonesia to, Nebraska, and everybody knows where Florence is pretty much, or something about it. But growing up in Florence was interesting because, again, it was a small city. We pretty much knew each other, and most of you lived in your neighborhood. And
it sounds a little bit like New York or something.
Oh, that's a big stretch.
In the sense that like a lot of people, you don't really leave your neighborhood kind of thing.
Yeah, but you still have like the potential of like you have lots of those things to do. Florence was like, the downtown area, so the historic, which is still today like the main drag for, every tourist. And of course, if you are from there, you really don't go unless you have to, like, shopping and stuff like that. But most of you like live your life in your neighborhood, the little parish, your school was there, your, friends were there. We're playing soccer in the streets, which is something, of course, does not exist anymore.
Sure. And well, actually, I guess, barring the soccer comment, it would probably be more like a modern day Los Angeles, because like people don't leave their neighborhoods in LA a lot.
Yeah, because they're kind of prisoners there, be of their like their own cars and traffic. But what I'm saying, like, it was a slower pace. There was no like big supermarkets or big retailers. I mean, I remember like as a kid, like maybe 5 or 6. I was like, going with my grandma to, grocery shopping at the local butcher shop, the bakery. Everybody knew your name. You were getting like, gifts and shit like that. And of course, this does not exist anymore. Everybody in Italy now lives pretty much the same way. You guys live here in the United States. We live here in the United States. And not something I'm missing, but it was definitely like a different time, a different place that does not exist anymore.
So growing up in Italy, that was in the 60s, you said.
Yeah, well.
So then take us through sort of, did you go to university?
Oh, yeah. I mean, so the system is different in Italy. Actually, it's different now from what it was in my times. So you do the schools, like, grammar, elementary school. We have like a school called Scuola Media, medium school, which you guys don't have, which is like 3 years. And then you eventually, if you decide, you can, legally can stop going to school. But then you decide if you want what kind of high school you want to do. High schools in Italy, there are different kinds, and they're supposed to prepare you either for a job, like accounting or something like that, or give you like a good base for going to college. So I choose it's called Scientific High School, Liceo Scientifico. And for the first time, actually, that's interesting because talking about what we were talking about before, like, living your little bubble, it was probably the first time that I had to go to a school that was like outside of my neighborhood. And it was actually one of the most prestigious in Florence. And it was interesting because I found myself like in a different world. Like everybody was the son or the daughter of somebody. And I just was a guy. So you're out of your comfort zone. Everybody's like very, very wealthy. Everybody had like vacation homes up on the mountains, down on the beach. They were traveling, and it wasn't easy. It was kind of painful to go through high school, to be honest with you. It was extremely like selective. Um, Honestly, it was tougher to go to high school than, for example, like I served just like an Italian my age. It was much easier to serve in the military than high school. High school was
In
like,
the military, you're
yeah.
saying?
I mean, the high school was tough. Like, it's kind of funny now when I hear about bullying is a big thing here in the United States. Pretty much everywhere in the world, there's lots of like focus about stopping kids from bullying each other and stuff like that. But in the 70s in Italy, it was like free for all.
Oh yeah, I mean,
Yeah,
I think
like,
to some degree it's the same here.
Strange color sweater or like a bad haircut or like a few extra pounds, you were like in for a bad day.
A few extra pounds.
So
oh goodness.
it's just then of course after high school I couldn't really afford to go to college. So for a few years I'd be working, and my very first job was in retail. So I got the job for a few months in a clothing store, mostly men's, that was very close to to Piazza Repubblica. For those who know Florence, Piazza Repubblica is like the heart of the city. It's like the main square. That was actually where the Roman Forum was built. When Florence was a Roman town, and a few months later, it was a few months, I was like busy covering for somebody else, and kind of like I enjoyed that. And then a few months later, I got a phone call from the owner of the clothing store, because a friend of his who had a jewelry store needed some help. So it was supposed to be just like a job for a couple of months. It was like Christmas time. I ended up working there for 3 years.
Oh wow.
Because on Christmas Eve, the owner got into an accident and broke both his legs. So
That's crazy.
I found myself in this funny position at the age of maybe 19 or 20. I had to learn lots of things. Of course, I don't remember much anymore about emeralds, diamonds, VV1, VVS, the colors, and it was interesting. I really enjoyed those times.
So you were working in an apparel store, but
yeah, first.
they also had a jewelry side?
No, actually, I worked for a few months, and then they didn't need me anymore because I was covering for somebody.
Oh, I see.
So they didn't really know each other. Again, it was like just around the corner. So the jewelry store was on Via Calzaioli, and again, it's the main probably walking street that connects the Cathedral, the Duomo, with Piazza Signoria and the Uffizi. So pretty much every single person who goes to Florence is walking on that street.
So what kind of things were carried in the clothing store? Was it suits? I mean, you think of Italy.
Pretty much it was like a combination of like, if I have to make it like a easy refer to everybody to understand, it would be a sort of Banana Republic. I mean, it was not a chain. So, but the style was like Banana Republic, casual.
So just like a contemporary.
Yeah, contemporary
store.
casual, something like that. So there's suits. So there was not like they were not the best in the world, but decent, and it was very well known. I think the store, I don't even know if it's there anymore, but it's been a few generations of the same family. So it was kind of it was interesting. Again, first job, and you start to learn a few things, and they treat you like shit.
So you served in the military, obviously.
Yeah, it was mandatory in my times. I mean, I don't do it anymore. It's on a volunteer basis, but that was later because of I went back to college. So at least let me rephrase it. I tried because I wanted somehow to have some sort of college education. So I tried to go back to college. So the way the system was, they basically like put on hold for your service, and they give you some criteria to meet. If you fail to meet those criteria, you have to go and serve. So to make the story short, I ended up not meeting those criteria after a couple of years. So I had to go and serve, which of course I really didn't mind. I always had this kind of like a dream in my mind of maybe a military career. I ended up actually serving for just 6 months, and it was interesting. I was based in a town called Rieti that really nobody knows. It's about an hour and a half northeast of Rome, small town. And again, that's again speaking about getting out of your bubble. I'm from Florence, and we think they were the best in the world. It's like, I mean, again, the best way to describe it is like Tuscany, generally speaking, is the state. It's like the Texas of Italy. We think we're a bit different.
The Texas of Italy.
Yeah, and sometimes especially the competition is with other Italians. We don't like anybody else. Like when I was growing up, like if you had like an Italian different accent or you look different, you were out. So, but when you join the military, it's like, well, you're busy with kids from everywhere. And I was like shocked. With some of them, it was even hard to communicate. Like, because they spoke some crazy dialect from the very north to the very south. It's not just an accent here in the States, you all,
Right.
stuff like that. But but in Italy, like the language, again, we're talking about many years ago, so I'm sure that now things are a little bit different. But the language is not just the accent; it's the dialect. They use different words, different expressions. So most of the time, I was like asking, like, what was that? What did you say? So that was interesting. Then I went back, and I went back to college actually to finish it. So I put my big boy pants, like, okay, let's get this done. And in just 4 years, actually, it was kind of fast for the Italian standards. I got my degree in political science.
Yeah, that was my next question, was what did you study?
Well, it's political science in Italy, again, at the best of my knowledge now, because things might probably a little bit different right now. But in my times, it was like a little bit more like 2 years were like, general studies, so you study a bit of everything. And then you were making your choice of what kind of specialization you wanted to get into. So like historical, economical, sociological. And I did some sort of a mix because it was possible those times between history and sociology. And my thesis was about the first conservative party in Italy after World War II. And funny enough, I wrote my thesis in Cozumel, Mexico. Again, different.
You wrote it in Cozumel?
Yeah. So
what took you to Cozumel?
So anyways, I always been a little bit like restless. So
you were just traveling.
We're talking about like before laptops.
Sure.
So the thesis in Italy for your graduation, you become a doctor I'm a doctor in political science for the Italian law. And your thesis is like something very serious. Like some people, take even a couple of years to put it together.
Oh, absolutely. That still happens today.
Mine is a book. So my mom still has it like right there in the library. Like it looks like something special. I'm very proud of it. So I spent maybe like almost 1 year like in making research at the National Library. National Library is a library in Florence, and I think it's one of the largest libraries in Europe at least. So you go through like photocopies and lots of materials, a lot of microfilms and all of that. And once I had all the material I needed for my thesis, and I was like, well, I can write this thesis anywhere in the world. I don't need to be here. So someone I was working out with had like a relative in Mexico. So I talked about this place called Cozumel. So I don't even know how, but I rented an apartment for, I think at the time I was paying the equivalent of $5 a day. That was coming with a scooter that the rentador was filling with gas every morning. And I lived in Cozumel for about 3 months. And I wrote my thesis there. So when I came back, my thesis was ready. I just had to have someone like put it in nicely and bind it and ready to roll.
So were you getting help from your parents for the rent?
I was able to save some money. Because on top of that, I was doing some small jobs, like some security jobs, like working for parties and stuff. I always been like a big dude, so they helped. I was like always like I've been working out most of my life, especially in a country like Italy, being like 6'4" and 220 pounds. Somehow you stick out a little bit. Yeah. So yeah, and again, it was super cheap. It was very enjoyable. I really like those months. I didn't even know again if that Mexico exists anymore. The thing you hear about Mexico, I haven't been able to go back, but it's about crazy things going on. But I really enjoyed it. It was very slow pace. It was somehow touristy because of course your cruise ships, because of the big drag there is like scuba diving, and it was really enjoyable. Like I came back super relaxed with an amazing tan, in good shape, and the thesis was ready.
So nothing's changed.
Nothing has changed.
You're still
tan. The same idiot.
You're in good shape.
I just changed the ocean with the swimming pool here in Arizona, and that's pretty much it. But yeah, then I came back to Italy. I graduated from college, and then you start, something maybe you guys here don't understand, which is like the struggle trying to find a job. in Italy, having a degree doesn't mean anything. Anything, whatever degree it is, unless of course your degree is in law and your dad is an attorney. Rather than that, you are on your own trying to find some job, and the offers they were giving me like ridiculous. Like I cannot. It's like working for peanuts.
So that's really interesting. I didn't know that really about Italy. So then what would drive somebody to go to college then if the degree doesn't mean much?
It can be family ambition. Like, my mom, I come from I'm a working class family. And my mom was like, well, you don't have to do much in school. Just graduate from college, get a degree, become a doctor, like something like that. So not much, like.
Now, what did your parents do?
Well, my mom and dad were both nurses. But my dad, he was able to get out of his job. I mean, again, we're talking about like old times. It's not possible anymore. But he retired from his job very, very young. It was doable at the time. And then he started a pretty decent career as a soccer coach. Or to better rephrase it, like some sort of, the best way to describe it is a personal trainer. So it was a coach that was like just coaching goalkeepers. And again, I don't believe in the very first one, the very best one. But my dad was for sure among the very first ones specializing in that specific role. So he's been consulting for like bigger teams. He started his own like goalkeeping school. So like teams were like, semi-professionals, professionals. They were sending their goalkeepers to my dad to get some sort of special training.
That's insane. So how old was he when he started doing that?
I'm very bad with dates. I would say maybe it was like in his mid-40s.
In his mid-40s?
Yeah.
So I'm assuming he played goalkeeper at one point?
Yeah, I played goalkeeper when he was young, but again, we talk about the late, early 50s. Then he got injured. It was an injury that today would be like laughable, like, let me fix it,
right.
25 minutes.
Yeah.
By the time it was the end of the career, he was selected for the, I think it was like, these are like long time ago memories, but like the national team for like kids until 14 or something like that. It was called like under 14 or something. I don't even know if that exists anymore. But so it was pretty good, but he was a funny guy. And I grew up basically like watching soccer, even though I don't really follow soccer anymore. But memories with my dad is mostly like soccer related.
Right.
Just a few days ago, I was talking to a friend of mine about like every Italian knows like the semi-final between Italy and Brazil in the World Cup 1982, and I still remember the day like it happened yesterday. I was watching the game with my dad, and my dad was like always very cool, never raising his voice, but that game he was like
pretty animated,
jumping over the place. So, and then anyway, so went back to college, and again, I started for a couple of years, like trying to find a decent job. Nothing was happening, but I don't know, maybe because of more ambitious than your typical Italian, I was able to find a bunch of like temporary jobs, and some of them they were very lucrative, like mostly like security, conventions, stuff like that. And I was already traveling kind of often to the United States because I always had this America, the dream, American dream. You always like, it's a beautiful country. I was saving money to go to New York for the week or something like that with some friends, staying in some sketchy hotel by Union Square that now is like, it's cool, but at the time, I talk about the late 1980s, for example, in the 1990s, Union Square was not the place you wanted to be. I've seen people arrested and drug dealing, the funny stuff. I always made sure I had enough money to go like, dining or having drinks in cool places or what I perceived as cool at my age in those times. It was weird, before the internet, so it wasn't able like, hey, Siri, what's the coolest bar in Manhattan? No, I don't even know how we were like getting some information at the time.
Sure.
So, and so I did pretty cool jobs. I met a bunch of interesting people. And then one day I was at the gym working out as usual, like my usual 2-3 hours a day. And I met a guy who is actually American Italian. So he was born in Buffalo, New York, but he grew up in Italy. So actually we went to the same college and we had like some friends in common. And he told me what he was doing. Like, I'm in the same shoes, like, I'm graduated from college, but my bonus is that I'm fluent in English because I'm American. So my English was okay at the time. Like, it wasn't great, but he was like, Max, why don't you join me in doing what I do? So basically what he was doing, and again, today is like you can Google it, you find like a billion of people offering the same service, but at the time it was not as common. So he was a tour guide basically, or what we call today like a driver guide. So someone with a license for driving people. And again, remember Italy is a big bureaucracy, so you need a license and permits for everything. So he had the permit for driving, some sort of limo permit, but he was taking people out on excursions outside of the city of Florence, and he was able to basically provide almost like the same service as a guide, explaining about the history, about traditions, about wine, about food. So I somehow started to consider the idea, and I wanted somehow to create some sort of specialization in what I was doing. So my interest became wines. So we started this company, and we're talking about the very end of the 1999, based out of Florence, and our specializing in tours. And my specialty, I was the guy in charge of the wine tours outside of Florence. As you know, Tuscany, we make wine everywhere. There are many different wine regions, but the two most important ones, we had this conversation yesterday, is mostly like the Chianti Classico area and Montalcino. So just outside of the city, you're already in Chianti Classico. Montalcino, you have to drive maybe an hour and a half or something like that. So that was an interesting times for me, because our business was started to grow like crazy, especially because of with my drive to travel to the States and the fact that actually he is American. We started to do something that at the time nobody was doing, which was lots of business calls in the States to talk directly to the travel agents, try to convince them to send them their clients.
Gotcha.
Because again, the service was tended to pretty high-end clientele. So for about 12, 13 years, I've been doing that, and business was growing. Everything was great. We get a bunch of celebrities. I'm not naming names, but and I really enjoy what I was doing. You have the privilege of working with people on vacation. You have the privilege of working with actually wealthy people on vacation, doing something like wine and food tours.
Right.
What can go wrong?
Right.
Unless the unusual grumpy clients, because life is tough and sometimes the market in the morning doesn't open as good as you were expecting. It was actually some pretty good time. Things started a bit rough in 2008, 2009 because of the market collapsed. So we suffered we had to fire. We had a few employees. We had an office actually in Via Tornabuoni, which is the main shopping street of Florence. Our office was in the same building as Roberto Cavalli, the designer, and across the street from Gucci.
Oh, wow.
So this was
so you're right in the thick of everything.
The very good times. And then after 2008, 2009, we have to basically restructure the whole business because, again, people are not traveling as much. We started to have lots of competition. And I started to chew on the idea of trying to move to the States.
So let me back up for just 1 second. So you started this company with your friend.
Mm-hmm.
So it was basically based on relationships.
Oh, everything, yeah. Because what we do, what we still actually do today somehow, and what we started to do at those times, it's very specific, and I don't know how to put it, but it's expensive. We were not like a TripAdvisor material. So it's all about word of mouth. But the point is, our clients still today, the joke is they'll know each other because they are part of the same group. They go to the same restaurants. They live in the same neighborhoods. I mean, you just name it. Of course, they have, they live in Long Island. They live in Manhattan. They live in Beverly Hills. They live in Malibu. So they all somehow, I'll say, of course, they don't know each other, but they are they're part of the crowd. So they use the same travel agents, because don't forget that our services today, and even at those times, they're not for the final traveler. We don't work with the final traveler, but with their travel agents. Yes. The travel agent for us is a filter. Just like anybody else, I have a website, but I rarely get any client online because I don't do anything to promote it. Because most of the clients online are people who are looking for deals, who are shopping online, go on TripAdvisor, go to whatever website they like to get ideas. Well, we don't have time for that. We wish them well. But so a travel agent, based on if they fly business class, if they fly first class, where the hotels they're staying, so 5 stars, 4 stars, they understand if we are a good fit for the client. Because if the client cannot afford, our services,
There's a
why-
monetary
yeah.
like
Once in a while,
implication.
you have the random like travel agent who just tries to give it a shot, or maybe he's not exactly super experienced, or somehow likes your opinion. So, but I would say most of the time, like I would say, when we start working on a client, that the chances we get to a final booking, they're pretty high, like 80-85%.
What was the okay? So what you were touching on basically is whether or not the people can afford your services, right? So what was the monetary implication back then? Like, how did you start the business, or was it all just picking up the phone and just trying to call
Again,
people?
we were like very few doing what we were doing professionally, which means like car were insured like with a special insurance for passengers. Like we have a license for driving people around. We have access to the downtown areas with a sort of a medallion, which is again similar to the limo service you have in the United States. And then you like hotels. I mean, again, Florence is a small town, so you start hang out downtown. Instead of having a drink at your favorite bar, like in your neighborhood, you were just going downtown to like a hotel cafe, hotel like bar, talking to people, and the next thing you know is like you don't know where you have so much business, you have to start hiring employees and a bunch of contractors.
So you basically started this business with no money.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
The investment was like, again, the license, car, and your personal car I'm talking about. My very first car for the business was, it's going to be funny, a 1996 Grand Voyager. And I wish I still had the car. You know, the square one, the very like, very, like very square, looks like a big shoebox.
Sure.
The interior was like white Alcantara, like beige. And I loved that car.
That'd get filthy, would it not?
Well,
White Alcantara.
People were drunk after a few minutes, so. but actually, that's how we started. So our investment at the beginning was basically nothing, just like relationship, like a few extra drinks, a few extra pounds, because you go out a lot.
Sure.
And once you start, you start. And I mean, let me rephrase it. The investment would be like going to New York to meet with travel agents, to set up meetings, to give a presentation about our business. But to me, there was like pleasure, basically, because I was coming to America anyway. And then you start to have to create friendship with people here in the States. Everybody has, hey, you must come over, like have somebody to introduce you. I want you to meet with my travel agent. So it was this kind of like, everything was intersected between like pleasure and business.
Well, so you're basically doing what you do for a living in reverse, right?
Yeah,
so you know Italy really well. So when you come to the States, into Manhattan, you're trying to find the good bars and also do business, of course.
Yeah. So like I was in Chicago recently, and I really enjoy like bars and restaurants, and do a couple of meetings in between, and try to get more business. But especially in the last couple of years, my business has been growing at a pace that has been almost scary, to the point that everybody wants to grow, but I'm at the stage where I need to grow like slowly, because it gets to a point that things get out of control, and you cannot really provide what you're supposed to, and that's when you really go down hard.
It happens in clothing a lot when companies grow entirely too fast, and then they sign leases for stores that they suddenly can't afford because they grew too quickly.
Yeah.
You're not really in the leasing business of offices or whatever.
No, but the point is like clients, of course, they're sophisticated. They have the nice budgets and all of that, but they have pretty high expectations. Sure. So the point is like out there's a limited amount of people can provide, because again, I always try to explain this way. I think we're pretty good at what we do, but the secret is the people that we use on the ground, because we can put together the best proposals, the best itineraries. We can hire a professional writer, James Perse or something like that, to write like a description. You're going to go to the Colosseum and you will see whatever. But everything comes down to the people who actually would be taking care of the clients. And there are like thousands of guides in every city. There are great driving guides for tours, but again, I'm not the only one doing what we do. So I have lots of competition. Most of them I respect. They do a great job in some areas of the country, because Italy is a small country. I think that in terms of of surface, Italy is probably the same size of, I think it's Texas again, but it's very diverse. So of course, I was born and raised in Florence. I was a tour guide in Tuscany. So that somehow is the core of my business. That's the part of the country I know like much better. But
that makes sense.
But so there are companies, for example, based in the south, and probably they know a little bit more than me, about that area, Positano, Sorrento. Somebody's is based out on the lakes, and of course they are more knowledgeable about that area. But I was able to see both the worlds. So the secret is that I was a guide, so I've seen what happens with clients, which means that 99% of the time nothing goes as planned, either because people change their mind or because of, you just name it, traffic, parking, cancellations, weather, all the funny stuff you don't control. So it happened a few times that, for example, like, you go meet your client for the day for a nice wine tour of Chianti, and they come up with the last issue of the Wine Spectator that maybe talks about Brunello di Montalcino, and they go, oh, let's go to Montalcino today. And it's not exactly easy, something you can just improvise like in July in Italy. So that's when it's all about personal connections. The most important thing I think in my business, I cannot say for all the businesses, but is personal connections. To be able to tell your clients, okay, give me a minute, I'm trying to help you, I need to make a few phone calls. And those phone calls are gonna, change your day. Because if you're able to provide the clients and put together like a very super last minute tour of a couple of nice wineries in Montalcino, the client is happy, and you end up like a very, very generous tip and a beautiful review to his travel agent. But if you don't, well, it's not him who made the mistake of booking the wrong or different tour. You are responsible not to deliver what he wanted. Right. So it's basically almost your fault, pretty much all the time.
So that gets tricky.
Yeah. But again, the people that we have are like, these are the secret of our success. And I'm saying as far as possible. But they know what they do, they're professional. And most important, they can communicate with the clients, not just because of they speak very good English, maybe better than mine, but because they can understand in terms of culture. They are on the same frequency. So the communication happens like without any issue, without any bump. They understand America. They've been traveling to the United States several times, pretty much everybody. They know that the approach with the client is different depending on many different things. And one of them is, and they know, is like you cannot be the same tour guide with like a super hype couple in their 30s from Manhattan who, the wife is whatever and is in advertising and the husband is a hedge fund guy and a nice family, old school from, Alabama or,
right.
or Georgia.
Right.
So there's a different approach. Usually people from, cities like New York, Los Angeles, they like a guide who's like talks a lot and try to keep it interested. It's like dealing with like a very high energy pet.
This episode is brought to you by Passion Fine Jewelry, located in Solana Beach, California. Owners Tim and Jana Jackson offer a wide range of fine jewelry, as the name would imply, but also independent watches. So for those of you who are collectors out there, if you haven't really explored independent watchmaking, I highly recommend you give them a call or visit their website at passionfinejewelry.com. Also, there's a wide range of information through Tim's blog, independentintime.com. This episode is also brought to you by Standard H. Standard-H.com is where you'll find our online shop. Really a great way to support the podcast. Pick up a hat, a t-shirt, or even our shorts. Right now, we're offering an additional 20% off if you use the code PODCAST for your entire purchase. I can't thank you guys enough for listening. Please rate the podcast. Only takes a couple seconds and sincerely helps with the search and for others to find the podcast so they can enjoy and listen too. Back to my conversation with Max. So basically, your business is based on relationships, as we've said. So if somebody's trying to become an agent, right? Obviously, a lot of connections would help. But what kind of advice would you give somebody?
So you're talking about an agent, not what we do.
Or even if somebody wanted to start something.
I mean, I think there's also potential in the world to do what we do. Please don't do Italy because we are going to kill you. But sometimes even one of my ideas, for example, is to try to do what we do for Italy for like California when I lived in California. But I'm sure I didn't do enough researches. But I'm sure there's like there are great companies who provide like tours and services in California. But there are lots of places in the world. I guess there's like lots of potential for people who can provide services to tourists, because it's not just tours. Professionally, the key is like try to find, again, the key is like personal relationships, like, and knowledge about the area. it's something that you need to love what you do. You need to love your clients. For the most of us, and I'm speaking for myself when I was working as a guide, but still I spoke with my main guide in Rome today, like honestly, like half an hour ago. And the conversation we have over time is like, are we lucky or what? Because again, that's what I said. You work people, rich people on vacation, who come from, and that's my personal opinion, like the most interesting country in the world. So they lots of, basically you end up like being a friend for the day.
Yeah.
So if you can make the switch of loving what you do really, like loving your clients, loving the place that they come from, because there's sort of like, there's lots of I'll say an attitude like from Americans traveling to Europe, like, oh, we come from a country, there's no culture. America has no culture. We are so ignorant. We don't know anything. And they always like, I never really understood that on my end, because I always had like great conversations with my clients. So culture is not just how old is your city cathedral. It's not just how old is that bridge. How long that one has been in business. But is culture. Is the broad definition is like exchange of ideas, of experiences, of. So we're talking about politics, about history, about lots of stuff. Right. And something that most of you guys have, because I'm not American, is like you guys are interested. You are curious. You ask tons of questions. So for somebody who's willing to listen to those questions and answer sincerely, and you have no idea how many times you end up like talking about politics, and of course that's some sort of sensitive subject today more than ever, but even in the past it wasn't like easy. I think that most of my clients and all the guys' clients always appreciate the sincerity. Like, listen, I know where you're coming from, but I think I think that. So you give your different perspective as an European, and don't forget that Italy traditionally has always been influenced by the American foreign politics a lot, since the end of World War II, with the Marshall Plan. So there's always been like I remember like great conversation, great American families, beautiful days, and that's actually what our guides are living pretty much every day. Yeah, at the end of the season, after like, I don't know, 400, not 400, sorry, let me phrase it, 250, 300 tours, because when you work and you're good, you end up like working every single day. Right. You're tired. Yeah. But at the same time, you feel like you fulfill your life with lots of history, lots of human connections. And once in a while, you get the random, difficult, just any other business, like person who don't want to communicate, people who are basically unhappy with themselves, so they cannot enjoy any traveling. But yeah, if you live in places, I mean, I don't know enough, but let's say if you live in a country or an area and you have, passion for the area, you feel that you have good connections, I think it's kind of easy to put something together like what we do, like a destination management company. In terms of marketing, that's the hard part. Because basically we started among the first to provide the service there was a request for, there was a need for. Because very few people, maybe nobody was providing what we started to provide. So we were right there, the first people ready to surf that wave. Right. So if you do it now, honestly, it's like, Max, I'm starting a company like yours in, I don't know, just name a country, or like, I have no idea, like, I don't know, Nicaragua. I mean, just to put it, like Guatemala. Where should I start from? Well, in terms of creating a network of connection, you need to start with your area. But then in terms of marketing, especially in today's world, it's much harder. Because in today's world, even though of course personal connection is still very important, when you start, I think that the social media, the internet, they've changed everything. So we started before internet really became what it is today.
So you mentioned California a few minutes ago. What actually, and you used to live there, now we're in Scottsdale, Arizona, here at your condo. What took you to California originally?
Well, around because actually, it's interesting. On January the 2nd, 2000, I was at the time business partner, and he called me. I was at home. He's like, hey, I have some friends from Florida in town for New Year's Eve. They were in Rome to celebrate the millennium. Come over, join us for dinner. So I went. It was a bunch of people. I was tired. Right after New Year's Eve, you still like hangover for a couple of days. I was younger. I was partying much harder. I mean, I don't party anymore. But so I went off with these people, and I became friend of two brothers from Florida, very cool American Italians. And for like a bunch of, just was meant to be probably. But I was already planning a trip to Florida like a few months. So when I was in Florida, I spent some time with them. Then a few months later, they came back for my business partner's wedding. So we started this kind of like friendship across the ocean, but very close. Like one of all those things that happen probably very few times in your lifetime. You meet somebody who thinks the same, which is kind of scary because I think I'm a difficult person. So I met 12 people as difficult as me, opinionated as me. And we became friends, and again, for very different circumstances, we ended up seeing each other a lot, even though there was an ocean in between. So they end up moving to San Diego, a couple of years later. Again, I'm bad with dates, but let's say 2000, 2003. And so I was like making sure that one of my destinations when I was coming to the States for work, for meetings and all of that, or just for pleasure, was California. So at the beginning, I was spending more time in Los Angeles because, again, for an Italian, Los Angeles, there's more things to do. It's Los Angeles, so it's a kind of appeal. But the more time I was spending in San Diego, the more like I appreciate that, like slower pace, small towns, the surf culture, and all of that. So David is one of my friends. He had a baby like 9 years ago, and I happened to become the godfather. Little Max is named after me, as you know. So there was like, I love that, and there was another reason to go and try to spend much time as possible down in San Diego to see my godson. So finally, I was able to have my visa approved for move to the United States. They were talking about the end of 2012. It was a no-brainer. Like to me, okay, let's move to San Diego. So one of the brothers, Danny, had a very large American home, so I was able to stay there for a while until I was ready, like to start live on my own. So, and he was traveling a lot because of his mom was in Florida and she was still sick. So basically, I had this huge house by myself for a while, and it was for free. So why not?
Yeah, why not? Well, and that sort of takes us to kind of how we met, right? So
yeah.
In your back and forth to California.
When I was still like, I was trying to spend most time as possible here in the United States. And again, I was like in America for maybe 2 months a year. And we met in Malibu.
In Malibu, I was working in Malibu for James Perse.
How fancy Malibu? We met in Malibu.
Yeah, we met in Malibu. 2010, I'm assuming, something like that.
Maybe 2009.
Maybe 2009.
Yeah,
maybe 10 years
like
ago.
that.
And then we didn't see each other for a while.
No.
And I got promoted to the store, to the manager. I got promoted to manage the store in San Diego. Out of nowhere, this 6'4" Italian guy comes through the door that I recognize.
Asking for a medium-sized T-shirt.
Right.
Because I want to show off. Yeah.
And then found out that you had moved to San Diego.
Yeah.
And we've been friends ever since.
It was actually a very nice 6 years of my life. I like San Diego a lot. Again, I lived in Del Mar for about 2 years. And then I moved to Cardiff by the Sea for about 4. So I love Cardiff. Cardiff was, there's something I'm missing about Cardiff. It's like the slow pace. The beach culture that can be annoying sometimes, and we had this conversation before. I don't want to get there, but generally speaking, it's very friendly people. Talking about the older crowd, and lots of bars, restaurants. It's unusual probably in California, but I was able to live probably a day without even driving if I wanted to.
Sure. Yeah. Well, Cardiff's pretty small.
Yeah. The Sister market is amazing, so you can go grocery shopping, just walking outside my apartment. Of course, coffee shops, as many as you want. And then, of course, in terms of, let's go to nightlife, go out for a drink, the shanty, the office, they're right there. And then if you really want to take an Uber for a mile, just go to Encinitas and you have a bunch of cool things to do.
Right. And so that's where Italy to the Max started, right?
Italy Max started, actually, the company was born in January 2012, so before I got my visa. So the whole process was you start your company, you start showing the potential income. Right. Because it's about money, of course. So when you go, officially my visa was granted in August, actually. I think it was the 12th or the 9th. It was a very hot day. I was sweating like a pig outside of the American embassy because they don't let you in until they're ready for you. And you talk to the consul in person, who tries to do everything to discourage you. They don't want you. We don't want you. And they're very they can be mean somehow. So I remember so everything, all the conversation was about money. So how much you make? Yeah, but I don't see the money on your bank account in America with Bank of America. Yeah, because if you don't give me a visa, it's not gonna be I'm not gonna put an account and money in an account that in a country I don't live.
Yeah, so it's totally a chicken or the egg situation. Which
yeah,
came first?
That's exactly the point. If you don't grant me the visa, I won't be able to
I can't make money
operating in the United States. So all these nice bank statements you see that says Monte dei Paschi di Siena, like the Italian bank, won't be in this Bank of America account. I'm like, oh, visa is granted.
Right. So that's interesting.
But that's one of those days again, I don't want to be too romantic or too dramatic, but that's one of those days you don't really forget.
Sure. No, I'm sure that, it just
the whole process, basically they give you they call the officer, who's basically a guy from the embassy who follows your case. It's almost like a criminal case. And I remember seeing the guy, they call your name, you go, and the first words were you're not gonna get the visa today. I'm like, okay, that's a good start. And
he just said you're not going to get it today?
With a straight face, don't expect to get the visa today. You won't get the visa today. And
so when are you to believe that you're going to get it?
Well,
the next day, a
week? Basically they keep asking you documentation. Actually, the first appointment for the visa, it took me almost a year to get, because they keep asking documentation. And again, I don't want to make it sound, it's the way it should be, to be honest with you. It'll be faster. Better communication would be nice, because they kept asking for some stupid, simple documents. But they call it a package. It's a bunch of documents they submit to an attorney most of the times. They're about every single thing in your life.
Wow.
Like family, bank accounts in Italy, personal, business, education. Seriously, I don't even, I think I still have somewhere a picture of my package, and it was I don't even know, 12 inches tall of paper of stuff.
Bigger than the paper you wrote for college.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. Seriously, it was insane.
So you started by yourself, right? One-man band.
Yeah.
In 2012, call it.
Yeah. And
now, how many employees do you have now?
Well, now it's 5 of us. But the very beginning was kind of difficult, because again, because of the conflict of interest with my former business partner in Italy, so the American-Italian guy we started the business in Italy with, I was not allowed to use any of my previous connections. Sure. So I moved to the States with
Nothing.
Just a place where to stay for free, some cushion financially. I was pretty good. I knew that I was going to be good for a little bit, for a while. And just a few phone numbers. So I started to dial those numbers, trying to see if it was possible to get more in some introduction, something. And the first 4 didn't really work out, until a very good friend of mine, who is very well known in the industry, is an hotel manager. He put me in touch with somebody, and the next thing that I know is that I could not even put down my phone, because my phone started to be on fire.
Just ringing off the hook.
Yeah. And it was completely unexpected. And when you start going from days sitting on your couch trying to figure out the way to start the business, to have the kind of response, again, I'm not complaining, but it's scary.
It's a sink or swim moment.
Yeah, because I remember you start freaking out, because that's the time you stop talking, or you keep talking, but you need to start delivering. So I need to make sure that everything that I was promising, there was I knew what I was doing, because of my background, but don't forget that I was a guide in Tuscany. Most of my connections were in Tuscany, and we started. And the only way you can be successful is to try to extend your services to the rest of the country. So again, I started to rely on my personal connections. So word of mouth, people that I've been working with. Sometimes we had celebrities, and of course they were doing, for example, Florence, Tuscany, and Rome. So we already had connection with people taking care of these people in Rome, because we're talking, hey, this person is coming, this was going on, we have a special request. So it took a while and lots of really sleepless nights. It's not like a cliche. Very, very concerned about, oh my God, this is happening and what am I doing? And you know that as a company, our first year was like, my sales the first year was like $2,500. And the second year was like close to 300,000.
That's insane.
And this year we're probably looking at about 2 million. So in terms of growth. And so after a while, I'm a control person. Let me rephrase it. I don't like to control people, but I control myself, which means like I double check details and all of that. And so hiring somebody has been like a painful process. We've been through like some people were not exactly into it. And again, no complaints about California. I love my years back there, but there's something about work ethic, at least in my experience. Yoga first, surfing next, go for a run, see my friends, have a beer, and maybe work later.
Right.
So that doesn't really fit my personality and our clients most important. Like you need to be available. There are days you don't do pretty much anything because again, it's like fishing. You send your proposals, you send your emails, and you wait for people to reply. And those days you can eventually, it's hard to plan of course, but you can do whatever you want. But there are some other days when you have like some important clients. Again, I'm not naming names, but I had like a very important client, like when I was still in California. I think I didn't sleep for a week because this guy was coming up with some of the most amazing requests I've ever had in my life. Like stuff that was like, okay, how do I do this? Helicopters are kind of common, but then we charge them. But you know, the requests that people had in mind, for example, you don't sleep because you make phone calls, you wait for people to reply.
Well, yeah, because of the time difference too.
Yeah. But it's so we went through a bunch of employees, and finally I found this guy. Funny enough, the only Italian taller than me, 6'6". Right. He was born in Florence as well, but just outside of Florence. But I gave him a pass, and with a very nice background in hospitality, he worked for a 5-star hotel, and we need to change his career somehow. So I took him as an employee for a while, and after 2.5 years together, I just gave him 10% of the company because my goal at this point is to take a step back, relax, try not to work as much. So now it's going to be his, but to be on the line. Right. Where I'll be at the pool probably, sipping on protein shakes.
Yeah, okay. Well, you're really into guns. You like to go shooting.
I like to go shooting a lot.
You love knives.
I'm probably a cowboy somewhere.
Do you think that stems from your time in the military?
Yes and no. I think it's mostly because of family values. And again, I've said it before, maybe too many times, but different times, different country. Sure. I come from a country where like they've been looking down the military for a long time because of our past during the regime from the 1920s to 1940s, World War II. So everything was like military related, was like right wing, extremist, crazy. Like I remember, like even I tried to join the some special forces because they differ distinction between special forces, special units. I tried to join a special unit. I didn't make it the cut, but they had a bad reputation for no reason, just because of they were specialized military people. So being like pretty much a socialist country, there was always been some sort of people looking down or suspiciously everything that's military, and me being like always like the black sheep or like the different guy, I was attracted. So, right.
So what makes a good knife?
I like very much Spyderco.
Spyderco. What do you like about Spyderco?
Oh, the edge. You can actually I've been moving a couple of times in the last few months, and I've been cutting so many cardboards that's insane. I mean, to the point like I need a nice knife, and Spyderco was like going through those cardboards like butter. It's very light. They're very light. I have actually like a paramilitary too, and I love those knives. Probably they're my favorite knives.
That's cool. And you're a big fan of double RL denim, I know.
Yeah. Well, part of that is because usually they have very good-looking chicks working at their shops. So it's nice to have like a smiling blonde from Wyoming selling your jeans in Malibu. They fit me well, and overall I like them a lot. Yeah. The WRL actually, cannot find many more things at WRL just because of the sizing. I mean, I tried a bunch of times to buy shirts, for example, like cowboy style shirts. Actually, I got a couple of them at the store in Soho, like last winter, and I had to return them because of I'm a big guy, I have very long arms, so usually like I look like I've been, I stole that shirt for somebody else from you. So
right from me, yeah, at 5'10".
Yeah, so it's but I like the brand. I like the stores are amazing. I can spend like hours like in a big store like WRL just browsing around. Shit, I would be able to buy because it won't fit me, but.
Well, yeah, I mean, Ralph's like the king of merchandising. So,
oh yeah.
I mean, his stores are like museums.
Ralph Lauren itself is. I mean, my dress code right now is like jeans, boots, and t-shirts, so it's pretty easy. But when I was like a little bit more dressy, Ralph Lauren, 25 years ago, Ralph Lauren was still Ralph Lauren. Maybe now it's not. I lost some of the appeal. I don't even know. But yeah, the border is a bit different.
So we're in Scottsdale. What really brought you here from Cardiff?
Well, the idea of trying to, I love Cardiff, it was beautiful. It was a combination of things. Probably the most important, I would say, it was like financial. I was trying to, do something else with my money. And California being incredibly expensive.
Yeah, outrageous.
Being Italian, Italians are, I think, some of the, for the population, were like the number one real estate owners in the world. I think like 70% of Italians statistically own like some real estate. So it's in our gene is like to buy properties. So if I wanted to buy anything in Cardiff by the sea, of course, I had to probably start kidnapping somebody with lots of money after ransom, because there was like nothing for less 1.6, 1.8, and they were like still like falling apart. So the other thing was like, honestly, after a while, again, I loved my little town. People were friendly. But after a while, there's something about California that is a little bit like different, especially because maybe I'm aging, a bunch of different things. But if you don't surf, if you don't do yoga, and I don't know if I can say that, but if you're not liberal, you start not really fitting that much in that crowd. So I'm like, let me see if I can find a place that is like still driving distance, because I want to be able to see my godkids as often as I can. They're coming actually tomorrow to visit me for the first time in Scottsdale. A place where like, how like I can buy properties for like without, for less money, is nice, is growing, and maybe the crowd is a bit different. So I came here like for a couple of business meetings last year. Actually, it was 1 year ago, probably these days. And I was supposed to stay for 3 days. I ended up staying for like 10. So after 3 days in a hotel, I just rented an apartment because I wanted to have like the feel of like living like a local apartment versus hotel.
Yeah,
I liked it. It was hot. That's the first thing you hear about Arizona is like, oh my God, it's so hot. Yeah, and so, but it was manageable. So I decided I had to go back because I had like a business trip to San Francisco coming up, or Seattle, I don't remember. Anyways, and I came back again, rented the apartment for a month. After 3 days, I purchased a condo.
That's insane.
Because honestly, prices here are so good. Especially for, again, don't forget, even though I've lived in America for years, but my mindset is still, I'm Italian, that's where I grew up, and I lived in California. So if you compare with California and Italy, prices for properties in Arizona are like insane. So I bought my first condo a few days later, and then I started the process of like moving, which is, I was excited about my new life here. But at the same time, of course, you're scared because I didn't know pretty much anybody. And I had, of course, my, quote unquote family in California and a bunch of friends. So, and again, there was lots of things I liked especially about Cardiff. Not crazy about California overall, but Cardiff, Sauna Beach, that area, North County, San Diego, was something special about it. But, so a very hot day in July 14th, I packed all my stuff and I drove a truck to Scottsdale, and a few months later I bought a second condo, and hopefully I'm going to be able to buy some more, and in a few years, maybe 2 or 3, I'll be able just again to sit poolside while my team is running the business. Sure. That's the goal.
That sounds like a pretty good exit strategy. Yeah. Well, Max, this is good. I feel like that's a really great place to stop, frankly.
Yeah, I hope you guys understood me.
Yeah.
That's the key. Doesn't come with subtitles, I guess.
Listen, I really appreciate you taking the time.
Thanks for coming, and I'll see you next time in California.
Okay, Max.
Bye-bye.
I wanted to thank Max once more just for taking the time to do the interview and sit down with me and chat. Definitely got to learn a lot about him that I didn't know before. It's been really fun doing these and finding out more information about people that I've known for such a long time, and this was certainly no exception. I do want to thank Clear Audio, CLEER audio.com, for supplying the headphones on my head that are just incredibly comfortable with fantastic noise cancellation capabilities. Also the music from Jensen Reed and Super Beautiful. Thank you to you guys for laying down the track. You guys, thank you for listening. Can't do this without you. Really appreciate the support, and we'll catch you next week. Thanks.